The sun hung low over the New Mexico desert, bleeding orange fire into the endless sky. The air was still, heavy, too quiet, like the breath you hold before a gunshot. Colonel Savannah Carter staggered from the twisted wreckage of her SUV, her uniform streaked with dust and sweat, her right knee throbbing from where the bumper had crushed into a rocky ditch. Her breaths came shallow but measured, trained, the rhythm of someone who had survived worse. She wiped blood from her brow with the back of her hand, then glanced back over her shoulder. The patrol car that had chased her off the road, Brett Lawson's cruiser, was smoking 20 yards behind, the hood bent like a snapped spine. She'd outrun him, outsmarted him for now. She leaned against the fender of her crumpled vehicle, sucking in the sharp desert air, one hand slipping toward her pocket where her backup phone, military issue, still buzzed quietly. The Pentagon had answered her call. She wasn't alone anymore. Or so she thought. Then came the sound. Another engine, distant at first, tires ripping across gravel. Fast. Too fast. Her spine stiffened, her pulse slowed to a predator's beat. Out of the shimmering horizon, another cruiser tore through the heat waves, blacker than asphalt, its lights flashing without sirens, a silent declaration of war. It skidded sideways to a stop, kicking up a cloud of red dust. The door swung open before the vehicle had fully stopped. Out stepped a man who didn't walk so much as stomp. Officer Rick Doyle. Nickname Crusher. 6'4", 260 pounds, forearms inked with old-school prison tats no academy had ever bothered to question. His badge glinted beneath a filthy vest. His eyes, small, sunburned, hate-lit, zeroed in on her like a scope. He already had his gun out, and he was screaming, "Get on the fucking ground, you uppity bitch!" The words hit like bullets, vulgar, racial, and intentional. Not just abuse. This was theater. This was power. Savannah didn't move, didn't flinch. She stood tall, 5'9", in battered army boots, her posture defiant despite the pain curling through her ribs. Doyle's jaw tightened. His weapon twitched. "I said down. Or I'll make you wish Lawson had finished the damn job." She raised her hands slowly, palms open, military calm, but her voice was a blade. "My name is Colonel Savannah Carter, United States Army Reserve. You're already deep in it, officer." "Don't make it worse." Doyle grinned. It wasn't a smile. It was the look a man gives right before he breaks something for fun. "Oh, sweetheart," he growled, stepping closer. "You think your little uniform scares me? Out here, rank don't mean shit. You're just another mouthy black girl who ran her mouth to the wrong good old boys." Savannah's fingers curled. The fight wasn't over. It hadn't even begun. The sun was high, brutal and merciless, bleaching the New Mexico desert until everything looked the same shade of angry, bone-dry beige. The asphalt shimmered. The air shimmered. Even the silence shimmered, humming with tension too thick to name. Colonel Savannah Carter's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel of her silver Suburban. The SUV, still idling just off Highway 70, bore a Texas plate that practically screamed outsider. Her pulse was elevated, not from fear, not yet, but from something older, something quieter. Recognition. She'd seen this play before. Same script, different desert. And this time, she was the lead. 8 hours earlier, Reno, Nevada. The podium had felt solid beneath her palms. Her voice, clear and practiced, had carried through the military medical conference like a scalpel, clean, precise, unapologetically sharp. She was 42, black, decorated. A senior officer in the U.S. Army Reserve with 2 decades under her belt and not a single performance review below outstanding. She wasn't just a physician. She was the woman military surgeons turned to when disaster struck: Haiti, Katrina, Fallujah. She knew triage like she knew breath. Fast, ruthless, calculated. They applauded when she finished. Hell, a 2-star general asked for her slides. She shook hands, posed for photos, and left the conference with the weight of purpose in her chest. By 3:00 p.m., she was back on the road. Fort Bliss was a 6-hour drive south, and she liked the solitude. Desert roads gave her space to think about the next mission, about the young recruits she mentored, about the next black girl in a uniform who'd need a path carved through fire. She didn't expect trouble, but trouble didn't care what you expected. Present, Highway 70, 45 miles east of Alamogordo. Her SUV sat half off the gravel shoulder, nose crumpled from the collision. Not a full crash, but enough to jolt her spine and send coffee splashing across the dash. Her airbag hadn't deployed, but her sense of unease had. Officer Brett Lawson, white, early 40s, face flushed with rage and desert sun, had caused the swerve. No sirens, no warning. Just a cruiser that gunned up behind her, clipped her rear quarter panel, and then backed off like it had never been there. She'd exited the vehicle cautiously. He hadn't given her a chance to speak. "License," he barked. "Hands on the hood." "Don't fucking move, ma'am." He said ma'am like it was a punchline, like her rank was something to mock. When he shoved her against the side of the SUV, hard enough to bruise her shoulder, she didn't resist. Not because she was afraid, but because she knew how these things unraveled. In the desert, miles from witnesses, authority became interpretation. And the badge always got the final word. She had stayed composed. A lieutenant colonel doesn't scream when she bleeds. He searched the vehicle without consent, tore open her duffel, dumped her medical gear onto the dirt like trash, looked at her Pentagon orders, rolled his eyes, and tossed them back at her boots. It wasn't about suspicion, it was about dominance. And it wasn't over. Now, another cruiser had rolled up. Different car SARS. Worse intent. The man who stepped out was bigger. Heavily built, thick arms inked with barely hidden symbols, some military, some not. The name tag read Doyle. Locals called him something else. Crusher. Rick Doyle had a reputation that preceded him like a bad smell in a small room. Fired from 2 previous precincts. Quietly rehired by the Dust Creek Sheriff's Department thanks to political connections. Every arrest report read like a war zone. Broken noses. Broken ribs. Non-compliance. He didn't walk toward her. He charged, weapon drawn. "Hands where I can see 'em, black bitch!" he roared. "Don't move unless you want to get lit up." Savannah didn't flinch. Her hands were already visible, palms up and open, fingers stretched, just as the Army taught. Her voice was calm. "I'm a colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve." "I didn't ask who you pretend to be," Doyle barked, spittle flying. "You think that uniform means something out here? This is my fucking road." He circled her like a predator, close enough she could smell the sweat under his tactical vest. Close enough to feel the heat from his sidearm. Behind him, Lawson watched silently, leaning against his cruiser with arms crossed and a smirk spreading like oil. Savannah's body stood still, but her mind sprinted. She cataloged every variable. 2 officers, 1 violent, 1 complicit. No dash cam she could see. Body cams? Likely malfunctioning. Distance from town? At least 40 miles. Radio backup? Only if they wanted it. She was isolated. And they had chosen her on purpose, not because she broke a law, but because she broke the pattern. A black woman, alone. They were in a uniform they hated but couldn't challenge head-on. From a state they mocked, in a vehicle that is too clean, too nice, too confident. Doyle was still shouting, pacing, calling her every name that didn't appear in a handbook but lived in the marrow of his racism. And Savannah, standing with sweat drying on her forehead and her rank pinned to her collar, said nothing. She couldn't afford to. This wasn't just about dignity anymore. It was about survival. And survival for a black woman in the desert with 2 rogue officers and no witnesses meant playing the long game. Her voice stayed level. Her stance was unthreatening, but her mind was already back inside the SUV, calculating how fast she could grab her backup phone, if she could dive across the console, if she could send her GPS coordinates to Major Hensley at Fort Bliss, if she could get one name, just one to answer. Because what was happening here? This wasn't a traffic stop. This was the beginning of a trap. And Colonel Savannah Carter had read too many casualty reports not to know what came next. The sun baked the asphalt like a furnace, waves of heat bending the air. Savannah Carter sat still behind the wheel of her dust-covered SUV, Texas plates gleaming under the brutal New Mexico light. The silence in the desert had a thickness to it, oppressive, waiting, but it didn't last. The driver's side door of the patrol cruiser creaked open, and out stepped Officer Brett Lawson. Late 30s, lean but coiled, with the gait of someone who thought a badge made him invincible. His mirrored sunglasses masked his eyes, but his jaw, tight, twitching, spoke volumes. He walked slowly, like a predator. Not cautious, confident, dangerous. Savannah adjusted her posture, hands still on the wheel, visible. Her training kicked in. Breathe steady, make no sudden moves, and de-escalate if possible. But she knew this wasn't just a traffic stop. She'd felt it from the moment his lights came on. This wasn't about speed or safety. This was about who he thought she was. He stopped just outside her open window, looked in, and didn't speak for a beat too long. "License and registration," he finally said, voice flat. Commanding, not asking. "Yes, officer," Savannah replied evenly, reaching slowly toward the glove box. "I'm reaching now." "Registration inside, license in my wallet." "No sudden moves," he barked. "I understand." She retrieved the documents, hands open, movements slow, and handed them over. He snatched them, glanced at the name, then back at her. Savannah Carter. He smirked like the name amused him. Out of town. "Texas plates, fancy SUV. What brings you to my state, ma'am?" "I'm returning from a medical conference," she said. "I'm a colonel with the Army Reserve, Fort Bliss." He didn't react, just stared at her name tag. His smirk didn't fade. "A colonel," he echoed with a tone soaked in disbelief. "Well, isn't that something?" She held his gaze. "Yes, it is." Lawson leaned down further, eyes scanning the car interior like he was casing a crime scene. "You military types think you're untouchable, but let me tell you, rank doesn't mean squat out here." The contempt cut like barbed wire. Then came the words, "Step out of the vehicle." Savannah hesitated. "Is there a reason, officer?" He took a step back and unlatched the safety on his holster. "Now." She obeyed, unbuckling and slowly exiting. As her boots hit the dirt, Lawson moved fast, grabbed her by the arm, tight, cruel. "No need for that," she said. "I'm complying." He shoved her toward the SUV's hood. "Then act like it, black trash." The words landed like a slap, the same ones she'd heard in hushed tones, in crowds, in sideways stares. But not like this, not in the open, not with a weapon at his side. Her heart thundered, but her voice stayed even. "You're making a mistake." "Oh, I don't think so." He spun her and shoved her hard against the SUV's grill. The heat from the metal seared her uniform through the fabric. "You're not who you say you are." He began to pat her down. Not protocol, violating. His fingers pressed into places they didn't belong, rough and angry. Savannah winced. "That's unnecessary." "I'll decide what's necessary." He pulled back, eyes scanning her again. "Let's see what else you're hiding." He moved to the passenger door and flung it open. "Do you have a warrant?" she demanded, voice sharp now. "Don't need one," he said. "You're suspicious as hell." "That's enough." He tore through the glove compartment, tossed her work papers, Army med reports, conference notes, into the dust. Then her duffel bag. Her spare uniform spilled out. He kicked it aside like trash. Next, her cell phone. He picked it up and turned it in his hand. "This government issue?" he asked. "Yes." He raised it high and smashed it against the SUV's hood. Once, twice. The screen spidered, then cracked entirely. Savannah flinched. "You had no right. You don't have rights when you lie to me, sweetheart." Then came the baton, quick. Sudden. It struck her right knee hard. She dropped to the gravel, pain tearing through her leg like lightning. "Why are you doing this?" she gasped. "You think you're above me?" he growled. "You think that uniform means you can drive through my state like you own it?" She clutched her knee, breath shallow, jaw clenched. "I serve this country. I've bled for it. And now you're gonna sit tight and shut up." He grabbed her by the back of her collar, dragging her like she weighed nothing. Her knees scraped against the gravel, her boot catching a rock and twisting. Then cold steel, cuffs tight. Brutal. He slammed the rear door of the cruiser open and shoved her inside. No explanation. No Miranda rights, illegal detention, and he didn't care. She sat in the back of the patrol car, wrists burning, blood running down her shin, her dignity shattered in shards beside her cracked phone. Outside, Brett Lawson leaned on the hood of his cruiser, talking into the radio, laughing. Savannah Carter didn't know where this road ended, but she knew one thing for sure. It had nothing to do with justice. The New Mexico dusk hung heavy, a thick stillness clinging to the air like the moment before a detonation. Colonel Savannah Carter lay pinned against the hood of her own vehicle, her knee throbbing where Officer Brett Lawson had struck it with his flashlight. Blood trickled down from her brow where her head had clipped the side mirror during the scuffle. Her wrists, though not cuffed, were clamped tightly behind her back, held in a cruel twist as Lawson spat venom in her ear. "Black trash," he hissed, the slur curdled with satisfaction. "Colonel, huh? You think that costume makes you special?" The weight of that word, trash, settled into her stomach like hot metal. She wasn't new to this. But that didn't make it any less suffocating. Her SUV, a government-issued Chevy Suburban with Texas plates, had been ransacked. Military medical kits were thrown into the gravel. Files stomped. Her service medals were scattered, one crushed beneath the heel of Lawson's boot with a smirk. Her phone. Smashed, crushed into the dirt the moment she tried to film the stop, but they'd missed something. Her backup. Tucked inside a stitched interior lining beneath the front seat, there was a second phone. A Department of Defense-issued burner. She'd slipped it free before being pulled from the car, her fingers moving like a medic working under gunfire, calm, calculated, invisible. Now, as Lawson stepped away from her to bark something at his partner across the highway, Savannah knew this was the only moment she'd get. She slid her hand, slowly, deliberately, into the hidden chest pocket of her uniform and thumbed the phone on. The screen lit like a prayer. She tapped open a direct line embedded in her memory. Colonel Jenna Maddox, Director of Military Medical Operations. Her commanding officer, her advocate, her last best shot. It rang once, twice, 3 times. And then, "Carter?" The voice on the other end was clipped, alert, already on edge. Savannah didn't hesitate. "Colonel Maddox." "Emergency. Highway 64 westbound. Outside Deming. I've been pulled over by Officer Brett Lawson, Luna County Sheriff's Department. No cause. Searched. Assaulted. My ID was visible. He smashed my phone. He's escalating." There was a pause, a breath held over miles of satellite signal, and then the voice changed. "Put me on speaker," Maddox said. "Now." Savannah tapped the phone and held it, just as Lawson turned back toward her, his swagger returning. He hadn't noticed the device yet. She set it subtly on the hood of the SUV. Maddox's voice boomed into the open. "Officer Lawson, this is Colonel Jenna Maddox, Department of Defense, Pentagon Medical Command. You are currently detaining an active duty reservist, Colonel Savannah Carter. Her status classifies her as a federal asset under Title 10 protections." Lawson stopped mid-step. His eyes flicked to the phone, then to Savannah. Then he sneered. "What the hell is this? I demand your name, badge number, and justification for this stop," Maddox continued, her voice a scalpel of authority. "Immediately." Lawson took a shaky step back. His bravado faltered, but only for a moment. "I don't answer to some DC pencil pusher," he snapped. "She was speeding. Acting suspicious. Looked like stolen property." "Stolen?" Maddox snapped. "Colonel Carter's vehicle is government registered. You're not just wrong, you're violating multiple federal statutes. Her ID is visible, her name tag is on her chest, and she informed you of her military status." Savannah watched Lawson twitch. Sweat beaded on his sunburned forehead. His fingers hovered over his radio. "Stand down," Maddox said, steel coiled in every word. "Do not touch her again. Do not escalate this further. I have this call recorded. I'm already contacting the Luna County Sheriff's Office, the New Mexico Attorney General, and the Inspector General for Military Affairs. And if you so much as breathe in her direction the wrong way, I will personally ensure your badge is stripped by morning." Silence. Officer Rick Crusher Doyle, who'd been watching from the second cruiser, approached slowly now, his swagger reduced to a shuffle. His weapon was no longer drawn. His jaw worked like he wanted to say something, anything, but didn't dare. Lawson muttered, "You think calling your boss changes what you did out here?" Savannah didn't flinch. "I know exactly what I did. I survived." He took another step toward her, but Maddox's voice cut through again like a blade. "One more step, Lawson, and I swear on my rank, we'll have federal marshals at your department by sunrise. Put her down." Something shifted in Lawson's face then, not fear, not regret, resentment. "You're gonna regret this, Carter," he muttered. "You think they'll always answer the phone when you call? You think they'll always come running?" Savannah finally stood to full height. Her knee ached. Her ribs throbbed. Her uniform was torn, but her spine was straight. "I don't think," she said. "I know." Doyle nudged Lawson. "Let's go." "Before this gets worse." Lawson glared at him, but after a long beat, nodded. He spat into the gravel, stomped back toward his cruiser, and slammed the door shut with a hollow bang. The red and blue lights clicked off. The silence after was deafening. Maddox was still on the line. "Carter?" she asked. Savannah picked up the phone, her hands trembling now that the danger had ebbed. "Yes, ma'am. I've dispatched a federal response unit, ETA 20 minutes. Don't move, don't engage, let them come to you." "Yes, ma'am. You did well, Colonel." "Real good." Savannah lowered the phone, stared down at the crumpled remnants of her papers on the asphalt, and took her first full breath in 15 minutes. But she knew This wasn't over, not even close. Lawson's stare in the rearview mirror wasn't fear. It was a promise, a warning. A declaration. The kind of look men like him gave when their control slipped and all they had left was revenge. She'd made the call. She'd drawn a line in the sand. She'd exposed him. And now the real war would begin. The desert night unfolded like a velvet trap, silent but suffocating. Colonel Savannah Carter's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly than ever as the glow of Las Cruces faded in her rearview mirror. Her SUV buzzed with the strained whine of a tired engine pushed to its limits. The call to Colonel Jenna Maddox had bought her temporary freedom, but Savannah wasn't naive enough to think it was over. She had 30 miles of pitch-black highway ahead of her and no illusions about what lurked behind. At first it was just headlights, distant, approaching fast. Then the same shape, the same grille, the same damn white and gold cruiser she'd seen earlier, now tailing her like a predator with unfinished business. Savannah muttered under her breath and tapped the dash-mounted recorder, a backup body cam she carried for field missions. It blinked to life, recording. The cruiser sped closer, bumper almost kissing hers. No lights, no sirens, just violence in motion. She swerved into the right lane, but the cruiser followed, inching closer. Then the impact. The first jolt came hard. Her rear tires screamed against the asphalt as the cruiser rammed her SUV. The steering wheel jerked, and Savannah fought to keep control, her military instincts kicking in, keeping the vehicle from rolling. She didn't have time to speak, just react. A second hit, this time harder. Her SUV spun sideways, tires losing grip. Her body slammed into the seatbelt as the vehicle fishtailed and skidded off the road, down a shallow embankment of sand and cactus. Metal scraped rock. Glass spidered. The SUV groaned to a halt. She was halfway to unbuckling when she saw the second cruiser, not the first. Another one, Rick Crusher Doyle. He was already out of his vehicle before it stopped moving, lumbering toward her door like a linebacker with a badge and an agenda. Brett Lawson trailed behind, favoring his side, but grinning like he'd just won a bet. Savannah reached for her burner phone, the second backup. She didn't make it. Doyle ripped the door open and yanked her out by the collar. "You think you're some big-time soldier, huh?" he barked, fists clenched. "Running your mouth to the Pentagon like we're just gonna roll over? You picked the wrong damn state, sweetheart." Savannah didn't scream. She didn't beg. She stared, cold, focused. "Burning. This is kidnapping," she said. Lawson chuckled. "Out here? Ain't no one coming for you." They cuffed her tight, too tight. Twisted her arms until her shoulder popped in protest. Tossed her into the back of Doyle's cruiser like a broken doll. And the road swallowed them whole. Silver Creek wasn't on any map. A dusty blot of corruption nestled in the bone-dry belly of New Mexico, its main strip lined with flickering neon beer signs, a half-empty diner, and a gas station that hadn't seen a shipment since the Obama years. The police station was a squat concrete blockhouse with sun-peeled paint and rusted bars on every window. It smelled of bleach, sweat, and cigarette ash. No badge numbers, no cameras. No oversight. The nameplate inside read, Mayor Ray Lawson. Brett's brother. Savannah's boots hit the concrete floor as Doyle dragged her into a back room lit by one flickering bulb. Her uniform was torn, the name tag dangling, her skin streaked with desert grit. Mayor Lawson leaned against the wall in a charcoal blazer, thumbs hooked into his belt, his tan face carved into a condescending grin. "Colonel Carter," he said, drawing out the title like it was a slur. "Quite a stir you caused out there. This is a violation of federal law. Savannah said. Her voice was steady, steel wrapped in exhaustion. Ray laughed. Out here, I am the law. He stepped closer, staring her down. Do you have any idea how long my family's run this county? That uniform don't mean a damn thing in Silver Creek. You don't belong here. She didn't flinch. That's the problem, isn't it? She said. You think I need to belong. You think your brother and his goon can beat on me, drag me out of my car, and it'll just disappear. You picked the wrong woman. Ray's grin vanished. He nodded to Doyle. Doyle stepped in. One punch to the gut. Another to the ribs. Savannah doubled over, coughing blood. But she didn't fall. They threw her into a holding cell. No phone call, no paperwork, no Miranda rights. Just rusted bars, a concrete bench, and the buzz of a failing fluorescent light. She slumped into the corner, breathing through the pain, feeling every cracked rib, every insult. But her mind stayed clear. This wasn't a defeat, it was delayed. And someone was going to pay. 3 hours after Savannah Carter's illegal detention in Silver Creek, the military police rolled in like a storm front. Humvees, flanked by unmarked federal vehicles, roared into town. Mayor Ray Lawson barely had time to slide his coffee mug off the edge of his desk before a sharp knock shattered the silence. Colonel Jenna Maddox stood at the front of the entry team, a bulldog in uniform, flanked by 3 armed MPs. Her words were cold and surgical. We have jurisdiction. Move. Savannah was found in the holding cell, bloodied, bruised, but alive. They rushed her out, past silent deputies and the suddenly absent mayor. No resistance. No apology, just a vacuum of guilt in uniforms. Within 12 hours, her dashcam footage, backup recorder, and written statements were filed. Maddox pulled every string in the Pentagon and then some. Investigations were launched. Brett Lawson and Rick Doyle were suspended pending a federal inquiry. Mayor Ray Lawson went silent, and for a moment, just a moment, it looked like the truth had won. Savannah was taken to a secure military facility at Fort Bliss, given medical attention, psychological debriefing, and a press strategy. Her bruised eye became a symbol. Her cracked ribs were a rallying cry. Social media lit up with hashtags. #Justice for Savannah, #Colonel Carter, #Stop the Badge Abuse. News anchors dissected the footage. Legal analysts called the arrest a systemic failure. Retired generals voiced outrage. Then, on the 3rd day, everything changed. A video dropped. Grainy cell phone footage. No one knew who leaked it, but it spread like wildfire. In the video, Savannah is shown screaming, stumbling out of her SUV, appearing erratic. A single phrase echoes through tinny audio. "I'll kill you! Get away from me!" Her voice. Her face, spliced and trimmed into a weapon. Cable news latched onto it. Commentators flipped. The same anchors who'd called her a hero now questioned her stability. Was the colonel mentally sound? Was there more to the story? The video was edited. Anyone with technical eyes could tell. But the damage was done. Truth doesn't matter when outrage has already changed sides. Mayor Ray Lawson held a press conference on the steps of the Silver Creek courthouse. A smug, cleaned-up version of the man who'd once sneered at Savannah in a dark hallway. "We support our law enforcement," he said, flanked by uniformed officers. What happened in that desert was not a violation of rights, but a breakdown in communication with a military officer who lost control. "We are pursuing formal charges for assault, reckless endangerment, and defamation of our public servants." Savannah watched the press conference from a briefing room at Fort Bliss, her arm in a sling, a knot in her throat. Jenna Maddox stood behind her like a sentinel, fists clenched. "They're rewriting the narrative," Savannah said. "They're trying to erase the truth," Maddox replied. Savannah leaned forward, jaw set. "Then we give them a louder one." Outside the room, reporters were already gathering. The war wasn't over. It had only gone digital. The desert night unfolded like a velvet trap, silent but suffocating. Colonel Savannah Carter's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly than ever as the glow of Las Cruces faded in her rearview mirror. Her SUV buzzed with the strained whine of a tired engine pushed to its limits. The call to Colonel Jenna Maddox had bought her temporary freedom, but Savannah wasn't naive enough to think it was over. She had 30 miles of pitch-black highway ahead of her and no illusions about what lurked behind. At first, it was just headlights. Distant. Approaching fast. Then the same shape, the same grille. The same damn white and gold cruiser she'd seen earlier, now tailing her like a predator with unfinished business. Savannah muttered under her breath and tapped the dash-mounted recorder, a backup body cam she carried for field missions. It blinked to life, recording. The cruiser sped closer, bumper almost kissing hers. No lights, no sirens. Just violence in motion. She swerved into the right lane, but the cruiser followed, inching closer. Then the impact. The first jolt came hard. Her rear tires screamed against the asphalt as the cruiser rammed her SUV. The steering wheel jerked, and Savannah fought to keep control, her military instincts kicking in, keeping the vehicle from rolling. She didn't have time to speak. Just react. A second hit, this time harder. Her SUV spun sideways, tires losing grip. Her body slammed into the seatbelt as the vehicle fishtailed and skidded off the road, down a shallow embankment of sand and cactus, metal-scraped rock. Glass spidered. The SUV groaned to a halt. She was halfway to unbuckling when she saw the second cruiser. Not the first. Another one. Rick "Crusher" Doyle. He was already out of his vehicle before it stopped moving, lumbering toward her door like a linebacker with a badge and an agenda. Brett Lawson trailed behind, favoring his side but grinning like he'd just won a bet. Savannah reached for her burner phone, the second backup. She didn't make it. Doyle ripped the door open and yanked her out by the collar. "You think you're some big-time soldier?" "Huh?" he barked, fists clenched. "Running your mouth to the Pentagon like we're just gonna roll over? You picked the wrong damn state, sweetheart." Savannah didn't scream. She didn't beg. She stared. Cold. Focused. Burning. "This is kidnapping," she said. Lawson chuckled. "Out here? Ain't no one coming for you." They cuffed her tight. Too tight. Twisted her arms until her shoulder popped in protest, tossed her into the back of Doyle's cruiser like a broken doll. And the road swallowed them whole. Silver Creek wasn't on any map. A dusty blot of corruption nestled in the bone-dry belly of New Mexico, its main strip lined with flickering neon beer signs, a half-empty diner, and a gas station that hadn't seen a shipment since the Obama years. The police station was a squat concrete blockhouse with sun-peeled paint and rusted bars on every window. It smelled of bleach, sweat, and cigarette ash. No badge numbers. No cameras, no oversight. The nameplate inside read, "Mayor Ray Lawson, Brett's brother." Savannah's boots hit the concrete floor as Doyle dragged her into a back room lit by one flickering bulb. Her uniform was torn, the name tag dangling, her skin streaked with desert grit. Mayor Lawson leaned against the wall in a charcoal blazer, thumbs hooked into his belt, his tanned face carved into a condescending grin. "Colonel Carter," he said, drawing out the title like it was a slur. "Quite a stir you caused out there." "This is a violation of federal law," Savannah said. Her voice was steady. Steel wrapped in exhaustion. Ray laughed. "Out here, I am the law." He stepped closer, staring her down. "Do you have any idea how long my family's run this county? That uniform don't mean a damn thing in Silver Creek. You don't belong here." She didn't flinch. "That's the problem, isn't it?" she said. "You think I need to belong. You think your brother and his goon can beat on me, drag me out of my car, and it'll just disappear. You picked the wrong woman." Ray's grin vanished. He nodded to Doyle. Doyle stepped in. One punch to the gut, another to the ribs. Savannah doubled over, coughing blood. But she didn't fall. They threw her into a holding cell. No phone call, no paperwork, no Miranda rights. Just rusted bars, a concrete bench, and the buzz of a failing fluorescent light. She slumped into the corner, breathing through the pain, feeling every cracked rib, every insult. But her mind stayed clear. This wasn't a defeat. It was delayed, and someone was going to pay. Hollow Rock Correctional Facility might have been built with concrete and wire, but it was held together by silence. Brutal, punishing silence. Colonel Savannah Carter sat in a 6-by-8-foot box, naked but not broken, her body a canvas of bruises, cuts, and defiance. The guards had stripped her of her uniform, her rights, and her name. All she had left was training and rage. No windows, no clock, no bed. Just a drain in the middle of the floor and a single flickering light that never shut off. Food, if you could call it that, came in metal trays once every day and a half. Water in paper cups was warm and stale. Her body had begun to weaken, but her mind had sharpened like steel under a whetstone. She didn't scream, she didn't cry. She counted breaths, memorized guard routines, replayed her field training in her head like gospel. And on the 12th day, salvation came in the form of a kid barely out of high school, a new guard, nervous hands, eyes that wouldn't meet hers. He lingered too long during a tray drop. When he finally spoke, it was a whisper through the food slot. "You're not supposed to be here. I know who you are. My uncle served under you in Afghanistan." She said nothing, but her eyes met his. The message was clear. Act fast. That night, tucked inside a dirty tray of rice, she found it. A burner phone. Prepaid. Battery 92%. She waited until the dead of night. No footsteps. No intercom buzz, just the soft humming silence of engineered isolation. She powered the phone on with trembling fingers and dialed the only number that mattered. Colonel Jenna Maddox answered on the first ring. "Carter?" The voice cracked through the static like a blade. "Where the hell are you?" Savannah's voice was dry, cracked. "Private facility, Hollow Rock. Lawson's hands are all over it. They're starving me, torturing, psychological playbook. Hold on. I'm getting a fix. Don't hang up." She didn't. She sat there, knees pulled tight, phone tucked between her jaw and shoulder, listening to Maddox bark orders, redirect satellites, and coordinate with the FBI and Fort Bliss military police. "We're coming, and Savannah, this time we're not knocking." 4 hours later, Hollow Rock's alarm system lit up red. The first wave came from Fort Bliss, 4 Humvees loaded with armed MPs. The second from the FBI's Albuquerque field office, black SUVs, sirens off, driven by agents in Kevlar. But what no one expected was the third wave, private security, not guards. Mercenaries, contracted by Kestrel Industries, paid by the Lawson Family Trust. Armed with military-grade hardware and the kind of authority that came from unchecked power. When the MPs reached the outer gate, gunfire started. The warden's voice blared over the intercom. "Facility under lockdown. Do not resist." Inside, Savannah heard the chaos. Boots thundering, orders shouted, the hiss of tear gas. She yanked open the cell door. The kid had left it unlocked, and slipped out barefoot. Blood smeared down her calf from a split in her shin. Her ribs throbbed, her shoulder burned, but she moved like a ghost. Down the hall, past a line of unconscious guards. Toward the chaos. She reached the prison yard as the battle erupted. Black-clad mercs opened fire on FBI agents vaulting the perimeter wall. MPs responded with suppressive bursts. Tear gas clouded the far gate, and above it all, a low-flying chopper hovered like an angry god. Savannah was still naked, covered in bruises and dried blood, but she didn't stop. She found a downed guard, took his pistol, climbed the stairs to the yard tower. Saw it all. Gunfire in every direction, lawmen battling mercenaries on government soil, and in the middle of it all, in a custom-tailored suit and Kevlar vest, stood Ray Lawson, the mayor. The mastermind, shouting orders like a warlord, she raised the pistol and breathed deeply. The first shot went wide, the second hit his thigh. Lawson screamed, stumbled, and grabbed a fallen rifle. She leapt from the platform, hit the ground hard, bones rattling, and ran. Ray Lawson turned, limping, bleeding, and still smirking. "I told you, Colonel," he snarled. "I own this state. Not anymore." They collided at the base of the fence. His rifle swung up. She tackled him into the mud. They fought like animals, biting, clawing, blood mixing with dirt. She got the rifle first, cracked it across his face. He gurgled something through shattered teeth. And she kept swinging. By the time the MPs reached them, Savannah stood alone, naked. Bleeding, alive. Ray Lawson lay unconscious at her feet, cuffed with his own zip ties. The private security detail surrendered minutes later, outgunned and leaderless. FBI agents stormed the facility, seizing servers, files, and hard drives. Dozens of prisoners were freed, each with a story of neglect, abuse, or silence. But it was Savannah Carter who walked out of Hollow Rock under her own power. No longer a victim, a witness. A weapon. A storm was unleashed. The ride back to Fort Bliss was silent, save for the whir of helicopter blades above and the quiet crackle of Maddox's voice through her headset. "You did good, Colonel. You stayed alive. You did more than survive." "You exposed them." Savannah didn't smile. She just stared out the window at the New Mexico sky, bruised from smoke and fire. She knew this wasn't the end. This was war, and she wasn't finished fighting. 3 days after the siege of Hollow Rock Correctional Facility, Colonel Savannah Carter stood at attention on the tarmac of Fort Bliss, her body still stitched and bruised, her spine as straight as the flag behind her. The sun blazed down on the concrete, and rows of uniformed personnel saluted as a silver star was pinned to her chest. Her eyes didn't flinch. Her jaw didn't soften. She accepted the award not as an honor, but as a reminder. They wanted her quiet. She got louder. Major Jenna Maddox was the first to embrace her. Behind her, brass from Washington whispered congratulations and photo ops. But Savannah's gaze wasn't on the cameras or the commendation. It was on the edges of the ceremony, the corners where the real war was still being fought. That night, news of the raid made national headlines. FBI files, corrupt prison contracts, the hidden system of private detention and racial exploitation. For 48 hours, Savannah Carter was a hero. The soldier who uncovered a criminal empire, the black woman who stood up against a state-sponsored lie and won. But by day 3, something changed. The first shift came subtly. A headline in a small media outlet quoting an anonymous law enforcement source who questioned the use of military force in a civilian prison. Then, a clip aired on a fringe cable network, distorted, grainy footage showing Savannah in the prison yard, gun in hand, screaming. The audio was warped. "I'll kill you all," the voice rasped. But it wasn't her voice. Not really. The clip spread like wildfire. No context, no background. Just those 6 words played again and again over B-roll of burning fences and downed helicopters. The edited video had been leaked anonymously. Ray Lawson was released 2 days later. Charges dropped. Procedural errors, the judge said, faulty evidence collection, mishandled warrants, and chain of custody issues. Savannah watched the announcement from the recovery wing at Fort Bliss, her leg wrapped, her shoulder stitched. She didn't blink as Lawson appeared on the courthouse steps in a crisp suit, a neck brace, and a bandaged nose. He raised his hand, smiled for the cameras, and delivered his next bombshell. "I am announcing my candidacy for governor of New Mexico," he said, surrounded by red, white, and blue signage that read, "Lawson for Law Order." Savannah's stomach turned. "We can't let military violence go unchecked," Ray continued, painting himself as the victim. "I was nearly executed without a trial. We cannot let rogue reservists take the law into their own hands." The applause behind him was thunderous. By the next morning, cable news channels echoed his words. Did Colonel Carter go too far? Were military forces misused? Where does civilian oversight begin and end? Savannah gave no interviews. Her lips stayed sealed. The Pentagon stayed silent. Even Maddox seemed distant now. Behind closed doors, Savannah was told to let the process work, to trust the system, but she had seen the system up close. The walls, the zip ties, the blood in the yard. She knew better. She wasn't the hero anymore. She was a controversy. The Silver Star sat in a drawer by her cot, unopened. One night a courier arrived at Fort Bliss. No insignia. No return address. Just a man in a gray suit with a padded envelope. It contained a second video. Different angle, same edit, same fabricated audio. This time, a logo appeared in the corner, a production watermark from a media firm tied to a political action committee in Albuquerque. Savannah recognized one of the names, a cousin of Ray Lawson's campaign manager. She held the drive in her hand like a loaded weapon. "They're building a new war," Maddox said quietly, standing beside her. "We stopped one prison. One system. But Lawson's moving it to the next front. State power, image control, smear tactics. This isn't about what's true anymore." Savannah stared out the window. She wasn't afraid. She was ready. "Let them come," she said. "Let them try." The next morning she drafted a statement. Not for the press. Not for the Pentagon. For the people. "I was kidnapped, tortured, and nearly killed. I did not break. I survived, and I will not stop fighting. You want a villain? I'll show you what a real one looks like, but I will not be your scapegoat. I will not be erased." She uploaded it from a secure channel, shared it to a handful of military networks, activist groups, and independent journalists. Within hours, it went viral. But the war wasn't online anymore. It was on the ballots. Ray Lawson's face plastered billboards and yard signs across the state, backed by super PACs and dark money. Savannah's face appeared too, on hit pieces, talking head debates, conspiracy sites. One side called her a hero. The other, a traitor. There was no middle ground now, and there was no going back. The final scene was not a courtroom, not a victory parade. It was Savannah Carter, standing alone in the Fort Bliss motor pool, watching the sun rise over the desert, its heat a promise. She wasn't done. This wasn't an ending, it was a declaration. War had been declared, and Savannah Carter was ready to fight it. You just witnessed the truth they didn't want you to see. The story of Colonel Savannah Carter isn't just fiction, it's a mirror. Because the system doesn't break under pressure, it adapts, it rewrites. It lies. They dragged her name through the dirt, twisted her courage into chaos, and made a hero look like a threat. That's how injustice survives, in shadows, in silence, in slick political ads backed by billionaires who fear accountability. But Savannah didn't stay silent. She didn't bow, and neither can we. You can survive prison. You can defeat racist cops, but when lies have political power behind them, you need more than courage. You need teammates. You need real justice. If her fight moved you, it's your turn now. Share this story. Question the headlines. Support those who refuse to be erased. This is Injustice Unmasked. And we're not done. Subscribe. Speak up. Because the next fight is already coming.